Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is D, and this is my review for Alien vs. Predator. Alien vs. Predator was released in August of 2004. The film is directed by Paul W.S. Anderson and stars Sanaa Lathan, Raoul Bova, Lance Henriksen, Ewen Bremner, and Tommy Flanagan. In the movie, wealthy industrialist Charles Wayland assembles a team to go on an expedition to Antarctica, where a mysterious heat source has been detected. What is it? A pyramid 2,000 feet below the ice. As the team explores the newly discovered area, they unwittingly end up in the middle of a war between the parasitic Xenomorphs and the intergalactic hunters, the Predators. AVP is a movie that, prior to a few days ago, I had only seen once back when it was first released in theaters, and though the details of the film had become foggy over the years, I distinctly remember being disappointed in the movie. But that was 18 years ago, and there's been plenty of films that go over better today than they did back then. So after recently viewing 2022's Prey and re-watching 2010's Predators, I decided to return to AVP, a film that, along with its sequel Requiem, I had long since written off and tossed in the "that doesn't count" pile. And well, after this recent viewing, AVP still doesn't count for me, and still is a disappointing movie, but there's more good here than I initially remembered. First off, this is a clean looking movie that plays in a color palette that I'm typically pretty fond of. Dark blues and deep blacks contrasting with beams of light and shimmering slick surfaces. If you like the way the Underworld films look, and I do, then there's a good chance you'll like how AVP looks, at least in terms of color and lighting. The first confrontation between a predator and a xenomorph is indeed a moment, and the slow-mo shot of that predator flinging a xenomorph across the room is borderline iconic. Also, while the infamous facehuggers have long been a part of the Aliens mythos, this film was the first time that I can recall where they explicitly show the phallic-like nature of the creatures. Past films would simply and effectively imply what was going down the throats of unfortunate victims. This movie shows you the penetrating appendage. While I wouldn't say this choice is necessarily good or bad, though implying certain things is often more effective than outright showing them, I will say it was an interesting and surprising creative decision. One of the areas the film falters in is the design of the predators. These predators come off clunky and brutish. Going from watching Predator 1 and 2 to watching this really highlights the step down in creature design and physical performance of the actors in the suits. There were many moments where I felt like I was watching mascots moving around on screen, as opposed to true life-threatening extraterrestrial entities. To go along with this, when one of the predators eventually removes his mask, the face underneath is laughable, and essentially does for the predator what George Clooney's Bat credit card did for Batman. Another head-scratcher of a decision was the filmmakers bringing together two R-rated properties to make a PG-13 film. All things considered, this should have been the bloodiest and most gore-filled film to come out of either franchise. Instead, AVP ends up being the most family-friendly film these two creatures have ever been a part of, which sadly is probably what the studio execs were going for. Now, as far as the R-rated, or I should say the PG-13 status of this film, I do want to make it clear, technically there is gore in this movie, but it's creature gore. Ooze and bright green blood of the predator, the ooze and the goop and the slime of the xenomorphs and the facehuggers and whatnot. But to me, creature feature gore that doesn't involve human violence and human blood and dismemberment and all that type of stuff. I know it sounds dark, but creature feature gore doesn't really count as kind of R-rated fare. The fact that it's creatures in its slime and green blood and stuff is what allows it to fit into a PG-13 film. So technically this movie does have gore, but it's not gore of an R-rated nature, at least in my opinion, and that takes away from some of the weight the mayhem that's going on screen. I hope I'm explaining myself adequately. In the end, I can only recommend AVP to die-hard Predator and Alien fans because, well, the movie is about those two creatures. But even that recommendation is lukewarm, as Alien vs. Predator neglects a lot of the elements that fans love about both franchises. Alright you guys, so that was my review for Alien vs. Predator. Worth a watch for fans of these two franchises, and it was more entertaining this time than it was the last time that I watched it, but there's still some things where they leave a lot to be desired. I do think there's a few things where they kind of inexplicably, in my opinion, mess up on. I talked about, some of the design elements with the Predators, although there are moments, just, little shots and moments where the Predators do look pretty cool, particularly early on, when the mask of the one Predator hasn't came off yet, and there's just a few shots where the visuals work well with the lighting to make the creatures look pretty cool. There are moments where the Predators don't look as goofy as I kind of talked about earlier on. And then the Xenomorphs, for the most part, I don't really have any issue with how the Xenomorphs looked in this movie. And in fact, there's one particular shot that I think is one of the coolest kind of shots of a Xenomorph that I've ever seen in an Alien or Predator film. It's early on when a Xenomorph is fighting with the Predator, and he's kind of flinging his acid at the Predator, kind of using his tail, I guess, as kind of like a whip, and the camera's kind of doing this parallax, almost a parallax type zoom effect right directly in front of the Xenomorph. I'm doing a whole lot of talking trying to explain this shot. Maybe I'll put it in the edit so you can actually see the shot that I'm talking about, but the Xenomorph actually looks really cool in this particular shot. So in terms of who ends up coming off looking the best in this movie, just in terms of on camera, the Xenomorphs actually end up overall looking better than the Predators do in this movie, in terms of the effects and things like that. I don't really have too many complaints about how the Xenomorphs actually look in this movie. I've got a few complaints about how the Predators look, so take from that what you will. But in the end, this is a movie that is worth a watch, if not for anything other than the spectacle of seeing these two species finally go at it on the big screen. It's worth a watch for that. It does have its faults, but definitely has its positives as well. So check it out if you are a fan of the Alien movies and the Predator movies. That is it. Thank you so much for checking this one out, and I will catch you on the next go round.